Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first I would like to start with Moscow. We have a lot of very interesting statement, very important piece of news. Trump's transition team believes that it is possible for Russia and the United States to reach a major security deal after the upcoming change of the power in Washington. A representative of the next American leaders in Toretsk told TASS. So this is very important statement, and as I understand, the talks are going not about, of course, Ukraine, not about NATO and the development of NATO organization further in the eastern direction. I believe that when the United States of America are talking about the major security deal between Russia and the United States of America, I believe that first of all the United States of America is talking about the Arctic, because currently when talking about the Arctic there are a lot of countries that has access to this region. Let's take a look at one important picture. For example, this is the picture of the countries that has access to the Arctic region. We are talking about Russia, we are talking about Norway, we are talking about Greenland, it's Denmark, Canada, and the United States of America. And when talking about the United States of America, they control probably one of the smallest region in the Arctic region. The United States of America and Norway. Russia has the biggest territories in the Arctic Ocean, in the Arctic region, and most likely the Russians will decide who will make a decision about the next development and the future of this territory. And this region is the richest part of the world with different resources, and there are oil, there are gas, different minerals, metals, lots of very important things that the economies of every single country require for further development, including the United States of America. And when talking about the Arctic region, most likely the statements that were made by Donald Trump completely connected with the situation, and that the United States of America has the smallest part in this region. By taking under control Canada and Greenland, United States of America will be able to make the situation almost 50-50 with Russia. Of course, the United States of America will never be able to take under control the Norwegian part of the Arctic region, but they don't need this. This is currently the situation of six states like Russia, Norway, Greenland, Denmark, Canada, the United States of America. This is the group of five, but if the United States of America is able to take under control Canada and Greenland, then this is going to be just a club of three countries, but more precisely a club of two countries, the United States and Russia itself. So that's why the 21st century is not going to be the century of war or different confrontations between the United States of America and Russia, because if these two regions, these two countries want to develop resources from the Arctic Ocean, they need to cooperate, they need to adopt common laws, they need to adopt common approaches of how they're going to develop this part of the world. And you know that in 20th century there were a lot of alliances created. We know that OPEC, the organization of petroleum, the countries that produce petroleum, we have NATO, we have the European Union, we have different organizations and different alliances that were created by Russia with its proxies around it. We have a lot of different organizations made by the United States of America and Australia, Japan, South Korea, and many other things. But when talking about the 21st century, most likely we're talking about the strongest allies in the world, and this is going to be the alliance between the United States of America and Russia. And these two countries will try to find a solution how together to develop the Arctic region. Otherwise, they're going to be very heavy war, and nobody is interested in this war, because as for the Arctic possible war, there are going to be no winners but just losers. When talking about Greenland, we understand that Greenland is a very rich island full of various resources, minerals, rare metals, and this is the only reason why Trump wants it. I remind you that Zelensky also suggested and proposed Ukraine as a mineral island in the Europe for the United States of America in exchange for security and defense, but we see that this project collapsed completely, and Democrats wanted this project probably for the next 10-20 years to get more strength, to get more powerful, and then after 20 years probably to turn their attention to the Arctic region. But now we see, due to the fact that the Ukrainian project is about to be finished and collapse completely, the United States of America are intensifying their actions in the northern region, because the United States of America needs their own resources. They need a lot of resources, not just from the Arctic region. They need a lot of resources from the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America, which most likely will be remained during the Trump's period of. And I believe that Trump is just the first president who started this road of US development. Most likely this evolution will continue, and every single next president after Donald Trump will just try to strengthen this position and to improve everything Trump will manage to get during his period of time. Another important statements made by, for example, Trump's son. He said that they love Trump. People of Greenland want to be Americans, says Trump Jr. From what I saw in Greenland, everyone was really into the concept. They love it. And they love America, they love MAGA, they love Trump. It was amazing, Trump's son said to the islanders when we're not against joining the US. Furthermore, we have reports that US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, on the other hand, on Greenland developments, the idea expressed about Greenland is obviously not a good one, but maybe more importantly, it's obviously one that's not going to happen. So we probably shouldn't waste a lot of time talking about this. We can understand Antony Blinken because he is going to history and he will never return back to the big policy in the future. As for the Pentagon, said that there were no plans for military invasion of Greenland at this time. So let's wait and see what is going to be next, but I believe that the United States of America under Trump control will try to strengthen their positions, because during Biden's administration, the United States of America was just losing their positions everywhere in the world, in the Arctic, in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, in Ukraine, in Africa, almost everywhere the United States of America lost their positions, and Trump will try to restore control over the influence that US lost during the Biden's administration. So of course, let's wait and see what is going to be next, but once again, I believe that in the 21st century, we're going to see this organization, we're going to see this alliance between the United States of America and Russia, and these two countries together in the 21st century will try to run and control the Arctic region, and everything in the world will depend exactly on this area, because most of the resources are located in this part of the world. Now let's go to the line of combat contact. During the previous 24 hours, we got a lot of very interesting updates from this territory. And first, let's talk about the Sudzha direction. According to information we have, the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Alexandria. As for different mappers, for example, pro-Ukrainian Deep State reported that as a result of Russian offensive, the territory between Leonidovo, Alexandria, Viktorovka, and Nikolsky was captured by the Russians. Not captured by the Russians, is currently considered as a contested area. So everything inside of this white line is already considered by pro-Ukrainian sources as a contested area, which most likely means that the Russians managed to take these territories under complete control. As for the north in Kupyansk direction, we have very interesting video that we caught from the southwest of Petrovka. In this video, we can see how the Russians were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions on this side in this area of the river Voskol. This is very interesting video because probably since the beginning of the special military operation, this is the first video exactly from this territory, which means that most likely after the Russians established their foothold in the vicinity of Zapadne, after the Russians managed to take under complete control the settlement of Derishne, the Russians may try to attack the Ukrainians on another part of the river Voskol, and we should expect Russian attempts to cross the river Voskol in the vicinity of Krasnye Pershi with the purpose to create another foothold and another position of the armored force of Ukraine in this area. So this will allow the Russians to improve their positions and to increase the level of the foothold, not even to the brigade level, but maybe to the level of a division. Now let's move further. The Ukrainians continue their counterattacks in the direction of Russian positions along the river Voskol, trying to slow the Russians down, and during the previous 24 hours the Ukrainians managed to improve their positions. In this video we can see another attempt of attack from Ukrainian side and how the Russians, as a result of artillery strike, managed to deal damage and destroy Ukraine armored vehicle in this point. This territory used to be considered as a contested area during the previous period of time. Now we have adjusted the territory in Ukrainian favor. Now let's move further. We start receiving updates from the lines between Kolodizy and Ivanovka. I'll remind you that just yesterday different pro-Russian resources reported that as a result of offensive operation, the Russians managed to take these territories under complete control and to get as close as possible to the settlement of Kolodizy. As for the 9th of January, we start receiving a lot of videos of how the Ukrainians were trying to counterattack the Russian forces and to force them to fall back from this foothold. The Russians were FPV droning the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians suffered losses. As for now, we don't know for sure whether the Russians managed to repel Ukrainian attacks, but let's wait, and today we're going to receive additional updates. The Russians will do everything they can with the purpose to defeat the Ukrainians and to save their positions over this territory. We haven't received anything from the Sivers direction. Very interesting and very important updates are coming from the Chasiv Yar direction, because according to reports and updates we got during the previous 24 hours, we can make a conclusion that most likely the battle of the city of Chasiv Yar is about to be finished. First and the most important is that the Russians began bombing and attacking the industrial zone and the citadel of the city of Chasiv Yar with total flamethrower systems. This is very important because this means that the Russians were able to bring these flamethrower systems as close as possible, and the area around these flamethrower systems were secured by the Russians. Another important development is that the Russians, according to different pro-Russian sources, managed to break through the Ukrainian defense belt and to cut the Chasiv Yar direction in two. So this information was provided us by different pro-Russian mappers. First, the Russians managed to improve their positions from the south and from the north, and then the Russians managed to encircle and to cut the territory in two. Once again, this information was provided us by different pro-Russian mappers. Currently, there are Ukrainians that are currently located in this forest and the micro district Novy that were cut from the mainland and were caught in cauldron. And furthermore, if this information is correct, then that means that the Russians managed to establish complete fire control over the main supply roads that Ukrainians were using to supply and support their forces in the citadel. So basically, and summarizing everything, sum it up, we can say that there are two cauldrons on the territory of the city of the Chasiv Yar. The first one in the forest and in the micro district of Novy. The second one is on the territory of the citadel, and mostly up to several thousand of Ukrainian soldiers were caught in cauldron. The Russians are saying that they made ultimatum for the Ukrainians in this area was, let's say, demanding to surrender. If the Ukrainians from these cauldrons are not going to surrender today, most likely tomorrow there are going to be nobody to demand to surrender. So the situation for the Ukrainians is critical, and the situation is just a big disaster. Let's wait and see what is going to be next, but as for me, I'm waiting for some geolocations that can confirm the Russian presence in this part of the city of Chasiv Yar. As for the city of Toretsk, the Russians began using FPV drones, and we start receiving a lot of FPV drones much further from the city of Toretsk, which means that the Russians moved their focus further in the northern direction and the northeastern direction. Currently, the Russians established complete control over main evacuation road. In this video, we can see how the Ukrainians were trying to run away and escape the city of Toretsk, but they were ambushed and attacked by the Russian FPV drone on the fiber optic. The vehicle of the armored forces of Ukraine was completely destroyed. The Ukrainians suffered losses. So the battle for the city of Toretsk has ended. No doubts about this. The main clashes are taking place in the fields, maybe in some fortifications to the north. Maybe there are still clashes on the mine of Toretsk Velyka, but it's just a matter of minutes or even hours when the entire city of Toretsk would be completely secured. We continue receiving updates from Vozdvizhenka, and today pro-Ukrainian sources updated their maps, showing additional progress on the ground of the armored force of Russian Federation. And the most important, the territory to the N32 road that yesterday was captured according to pro-Ukrainian sources currently is shown by the Ukrainian sources as a gray zone or contested area. So which means that this territory was clad by the Russians physically, and one of the most important supply roads between the city of Toretsk and the city of Pokrovsk and the city of Konstantinovka was cut off by the Russians. This is very important, and this is another disaster. As for the Pokrovsk direction, we have small adjustments on the map, and the most important are coming from the settlement of Ukrainka. The Ukrainian sources published the video how they were hunting and attacking the Russian units in the vicinity of the village by the name of Yasenevo. A lot of artillery strikes, some FPV drone strikes. One of the episodes was geolocated exactly in this point, and this episode tells us that the village of Ukrainka was captured most likely completely, and everything behind this point was colored in Russian favor. So the battle for the village of Yasenevo has started, and most likely today the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back further in Novoandreevka. Also, the Russians managed to improve their positions between Slavyanka and Petropavlovka. This information was provided us by different pro-Ukrainian mappers. So let's wait and see what is going to be next. And of course, the Russians continue advancing in the direction of Dachne. During the previous 24 hours, we got several more videos of how the Russians were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian units and positions on the eastern part of the settlement itself. We are waiting when the ground operation is going to start, and most likely the ground operation is going to start during the next 24-48 hours. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.